The Brownlow Medal is an award given each year to the AFL player deemed the best and fairest in the home and away season, deemed by the umpires of the league. It's probably the biggest individual award in the sport and is used most of the time to see which player had the best individual season overall. Although the way the votes are counted doesn't always mean this is the result. Due to this, certain players may be viewed as undeserving of the award, or robbing other players of the achievement. So in today's video, I go through some of the most undeserving Brownlow medalists in the AFL's history, and talk about why they might not have deserved the award as much as others around them. And disclaimer, obviously everyone who won a Brownlow medal was good, and deserved it. The title just sounded better, to be honest. I'm sure they worked hard for it, so not bashing anyone in this context. Before we get into the video, only about 6% of you guys are actually subscribed. We're on the road to 1k subs. I'm doing a Guernsey giveaway when we get there. All you have to do to enter is subscribe. That's literally it. It also helps support the channel and lets me know what types of videos you guys want to see. As some of you can see, I've started uploading weekly, so let's smash some likes for that down below. Thank you anyway, and without further ado, let's get into it. Matt Priddis is the first name that comes to mind for me, him winning the award in 2014. I remember watching the award presentation and just hoping Gary Ablett could pull it off, but obviously that didn't end up happening. Priddis had a pretty good year, averaging 28.5 disposals, 2.5 marks and 7.3 tackles a game. But even though he ranked first in disposals, second in contested possessions and third in tackles, these numbers were not good enough to make the All-Australian team that year. So how did he win it? Nat Fyfe, who was the favourite for the majority of the season, got suspended, obviously bowing him out of the race, where he ended up polling 25 votes, one short of Priddis' total. Another favourite to win, Gary Ablett Jr., missed a third of the season and still managed to poll 22 votes. So it's more than safe to say that without the injury, Gaz would surely have picked up the medal. Priddis was solid, but wasn't up to the standard of those he beat, who lost to unforeseen circumstances. In my opinion, he was one of those players who racked up a lot of empty stats and didn't provide that much impact on the field, and that's why he appears as the first player in this video. Probably the most famous example that I'm going to mention, Shane Boyden won the 2000 Brownlow Medal in one of the most shocking outcomes in the history of the award. Scott West was the major favourite heading into the night, averaging 6 more disposals per game than Shane. At the end of the night, Boyden had the last laugh, polling 24 votes, ahead of other all-time players like Andrew McLeod. Boyden averaged 22 disposals, 4.3 marks and 0.8 goals per game. A decent stat line, but nothing comparable to the best in the game at the time. To put this in perspective, the 4 players which placed behind Shane all averaged more touches per game than him. Him winning the award was helped by the fact that players such as James Hird and Matthew Lloyd, and Brett Ratten and Anthony Koutoufides had to share votes, being the best 2 players on their team, and some of the best in the league. After taking home the award, Boyden was traded to Collingwood 2 years later, and delisted in 5. Showing that his career had no longevity when it came to performance. This year is probably the main example used by fans, which demonstrates the unpredictability and flaws within the award, and how the best player doesn't always win. In my opinion, Boyden had a good year, and should have been in and around the conversation, but never should have received the award when comparing his year to those around him. And unlike other examples, it wasn't injuries or suspensions that led to this, the biggest upset in AFL awards history. Adam Cooney had a couple of good years in the AFL, but really broke out in the 2008 season. He picked up the Brownlow, amassing 24 votes, surpassing Gary Ablett Jr., Simon Black and Matthew Richardson in the process. It's another case of a player playing really good one year and then falling off a few years after, so to speak. Cooney even got locked out of the vote count for 2 whole rounds and didn't prepare a winning speech. Obviously he wasn't bad at all, averaging 25.5 disposals, 3.9 marks, 2.6 tackles and 1 goal per game on a good Western Bulldogs team, but I think Gaz should have taken home the award here, who averaged 29 disposals, 4.8 marks and a goal per game on the minor premiership winning Cats. But Ablett shared votes with Joel Corey and Joel Selwood, while Cooney ran away with the prize. Brad Hardy was a name that I didn't truly recognise until I did some research, but he did pick up the 1985 Brownlow. Hardy played an aggressive role from the back pocket for Footscray, and in 1985 was incredibly elusive from tacklers and paved the way for players like Gavin Wanganeen to experience success in that role. He was the poster child for this style of play and benefited from it tremendously, catching the umpire's eyes in the process. As a defender, he didn't put defending as a top priority, and due to this he faced some backlash, letting his opponents score easy goals on a regular basis. In this season, the Dogs played well and Hardy was a good player in good form, managing to snip players in the vote count like Justin Madden and Paul Roos. Hardy had flashy play, but some believe Doug Hawkins, his teammate, was a much better player, but in bad favour with the umpires, resulting in more votes for Hardy overall. This was way before my time, so I'm yet to really form an opinion, but I think a wide range of factors all contributed to this win. and maybe it was one of the weaker years in terms of the player pool. If I'm wrong, the old heads will let me know in the comments, but in this season, Hardy only managed to average 18 disposals, 4.5 marks, and 0.5 goals per game. Hardly astonishing numbers, but decent for those times. Tony Liberatore was one of the most controversial, hard-nosed, tough little nuggets in the AFL's history, polling a low 18 votes in 1990, edging out Graham Wright with 17 and Stephen Silvani with 16. This year showcased one of the lowest tally counts in the history of the award. He won the award out of nowhere, after not making North Melbourne's team and only playing 18 games for the Blues in his first 4 seasons there. I think the fact that Stephen Silvani has never won a Brownlow definitely affects people's opinion on this outcome, as realistically he was the better player and arguably in the prime years of his career. This is another argument that I saw when people discuss the Brownlow. How could players like Carey and Matthews not have won a Brownlow when Tony had? But in reality, that's just how the award system works, and I don't think that makes Libba any less deserving after a great year. Nevertheless, I think Libba always did the most to win and wasn't the most flashy player, but got the job done. He averaged 26 disposals, 4.3 tackles, 1.7 marks, and 0.7 goals per game that year. And the most recent addition to this list, it's worth mentioning Ollie Wines, the winner of last year's Brownlow, in this discussion. Polling an impressive 36 votes, Wines beat out better players such as Marcus Bontempelli, Clayton Oliver, and Christian Petrarca, which didn't sit well with some fans. And although Wines was a contested ball beast last year, averaging 32.4 disposals, 4.2 marks, and 4.4 tackles per game, he wasn't very efficient disposing of the ball, and probably benefited off his team's success that year, as Port made the prelim final. Team success was down this year, and it showed through his play as well, his numbers decreasing across nearly all areas. But I'm getting distracted here. Last year, Wines played well, and was definitely up there in the conversation, but it's hard to judge him to be better than the Bont and Oliver, who have more impact on the game and made it further in the finals. But then again, this all leads back to the Brownlow not being able to consistently award the best player each individual season, and instead focusing on a game-by-game basis. It has some pros and some flaws. A more NBA MVP type voting system would be better in my opinion, but it's hard for change to occur, and I don't think that it will ever happen. And I kind of like it that way. The differences we have to other leagues make us special, but sometimes, as shown in this video, it leads to some shocking outcomes. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Brownlow Award. And that wraps up the video. Obviously not sending any hate to these players, they all deserve the award in one way or another. This just highlights some possible flaws in the system used in the Brownlow. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed as it took a while to make. Make sure to comment your opinions down below, and let me know if I'm being too harsh or missed some players on the list. Enjoy watching the Brownlow on Sunday. I'm backing Andy Brayshaw to get up in that one. Make sure you guys like and subscribe for future Sportsfield content. Have a good one, and cheers.